They produce a product that saps the strength from a community and the will of its users. Left unchecked, need for the product surges, generating a growing, captive market. While they produce it, they expose themselves, neighbors, and even their children to toxic chemicals and the threat of fire and explosions. Then, with production complete, they dump unwanted toxic waste along roadsides, into fields, and even into public water supplies. The manufacturing of illegal drugs in the U.S., particularly methamphetamine, has taken on epidemic proportions. These illicit operations, known as clandestine laboratories, confront responders with a new set of challenges. The operators of the labs, known as cooks, are driven by the lure of easy money and the grasp of a drug that, through a new manufacturing process, is twice as potent and provides a longer-lasting high than cocaine. Apprehending and prosecuting clandestine lab cooks is only part of the battle. What's usually left behind is a makeshift laboratory overflowing with hazardous chemicals and contaminated equipment. And chances are that hazardous wastes generated during the cook have also been illegally dumped nearby.
Methamphetamine, which is the primary drug that we're seeing manufactured in California, is the drug of the 90s. We've seen a tremendous increase the past 5 years in the amount of methamphetamine labs that we're seizing in the Southern California area, specifically centered out of Los Angeles, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties. They're mixing anything and everything to try to produce a finished product that they can inject and or sell to make a little bit of a profit, so they can in turn, manufacture another ounce or two.
Methamphetamine, also known as speed, crank, crystal, and ice, can be ingested orally, snorted, injected, or smoked by users. Long-term abusers, known as tweakers, often binge for up to 2 weeks and constantly crave more of the drug to recreate the euphoric state brought on from the initial high. Chronic abusers become delusional, experience hallucinations, and exhibit high-risk behavior, often resulting in violence. Extreme weight loss, pale facial skin, discolored teeth, and scars or open sores are also common. With only a modest investment, any methamphetamine user can become a meth cook in a matter of hours. The recipe to produce the drug can be found on the internet, and most of the ingredients and lab equipment can be bought legally through commercial sources like hardware and convenience stores. Unlike the drug business of the past, there's no risky border crossings and no big upfront money.
Methamphetamine is a different kind of threat to rural America and to suburban America than it's ever faced before because it's homegrown. Our borders for methamphetamine are the local hardware store, the local convenience store, the local liquor store. It is not the Mexican border or South America or somewhere in the Far East.
Clandestine labs can be small 1- or 2-person mom-and-pop operations, also known as Beavis and Butthead labs, or in the case of many Western states, highly organized mobile production facilities, usually run and financed by Mexican national drug cartels, also known as Mexican national labs.
The Mexican national operation, when they come in and do an operation, they do it big time. I'm talking about hundreds of pounds of methamphetamine. They do it one time there and they're out of there. It's strictly for profit. It has nothing to do with use. You won't see a Mexican national that's operating a Mexican national clandestine lab using. It's strictly for profit.
Clandestine labs can be found almost anywhere. The only location requirements cooks desire are privacy, because of the odors, noise, and unusual hours they keep, and a reliable source of water, heat, and electricity.
The small mom and pop labs we're finding anywhere and everywhere, from kitchens to bathrooms, residential neighborhoods to hotels, motels, apartment complexes. There has recently been a trend where we are finding labs in urban areas, in machine shops, in auto body shops, in automotive repair shops. We're finding them in residences. Really, these laboratories are everywhere. The trend of the large-scale operators, though, is to go remote. That's the reason that we find a lot of laboratories operating in farming environments. They blend well with the surrounding environment because they blend with the farm laborers that come in from Mexico and work the fields, the agricultural fields in California.
Once the cook has a location secured, it's just a matter of choosing a production technique. The most commonly used recipes call for mixing over-the-counter cold medications containing pseudoephedrine along with other ingredients in a process that can be performed at separate locations if need be in less than 24 hours. No matter what recipe they choose or how big the operation is, all clandestine labs share one trait: a total disregard for safety. Risky production techniques combined with haphazard storage and illegal and unsafe disposal add up to a formula for tragedy.
I'm more concerned for public safety when it comes to the small mom and pop labs because they are untrained, quote, mad scientists. They have no chemistry background. They're using chemicals that are highly volatile without any training, any expertise, and they're using glassware that you would bake a cake in. Anything that they can apply heat to and cause a chemical reaction. Those are the ones that we're having explosions with in motels, apartment buildings, and they present the most danger to the public.
Many times, chemicals and equipment used to synthesize the drugs are housed at a separate location, often rental lockers, where the lack of ventilation and cramped space increase the potential for hazardous conditions. Unfortunately, young children are often victimized by parents who use and cook meth. Parents become obsessed with the drug to the point where they show no regard for their children's welfare. Kids are forced to live and play in homes contaminated with toxic chemicals. Neighbors also become unwitting victims, usually unaware of the threat that may be right next door to them. Once a cook completes a batch of methamphetamine, at least 6 pounds of hazardous waste remain for every pound of processed meth. These unwanted hazardous byproducts are then indiscriminately dumped anywhere and everywhere.
Don't take it lightly. These guys, when they cook, they put it in the sewer system, they pour it down the toilets, it goes into the sewer system, they pour it in the backyard, they bury it in the backyard, they'll drive along the road, toss it out of the back of their trucks. We're digging these big pits, putting all this waste in there, and eventually, if we don't find it, then it's going to eventually seep down in the groundwater.
The resulting contamination of structures, soils, water supplies, and air emissions, and the poisoning of crops and livestock costs property owners and taxpayers millions of dollars in damages and cleanup costs, as well as the cost to law enforcement.
So many unknown situations where we go through that door. They may be cooking one certain method where if that burner's on, maybe that burner is the only thing that's keeping these chemicals from exploding. Or they may have acids and things set around the room where if you knock over one acid or one chemical and it mixes with another, you may have an explosion, you may have a fire, you may have toxic gases come about. All this stuff is in the back of your mind before you even go in there, because you know that if this guy is a tweaker and he's paranoid, chances of him having a weapon and thinking before he actually uses it, but going ahead and using it first, it's a very hazardous situation.
Some larger cities, counties, and states employ teams specifically trained to investigate and deactivate clandestine labs. But other cities and smaller communities often lack the resources and personnel needed to safely shut down, dismantle, or clean up a lab or dump site. These deficiencies, coupled with a lack of awareness of the problem, can lead to serious injury or even death. Many times, labs have been discovered by firefighters, police officers, child welfare workers, postal employees, neighbors, and even landlords making what seemed like a routine call.
053A. So what that means
Basically, our department's feeling is that people who are not trained in how to deal with hazardous materials should basically isolate the area and back out and call in your local hazmat team and or Clan Lab task force. They have people on staff who are trained to know what chemicals are involved and what the specific hazards are. And they also are equipped with the proper protective equipment so that they don't put themselves at risk.
Well, to take it from the top, if you're a patrol deputy and you're out on a beat and you get a call to a suspicious circumstances or something like that, or you may even go to a domestic violence call or something, you get there and you see that you have suspected clandestine lab paraphernalia, that being the chemical containers, chemical odor. If you get into a house and you see something cooking on a stove and you think it's lab related, do not turn that heat off. Just back everybody out and call a clandestine lab team to handle it appropriately and safely.
Lack of ventilation at clandestine labs, combined with a potentially oxygen-deficient atmosphere and the presence of reactive, toxic, corrosive, and flammable materials, can all lead to a number of potentially hazardous scenarios.
With this particular process, we've seen a real drastic increase in fires at residences, apartments, and hotel rooms, where reactions have gone bad and ignited, and that creates a real problem. Some of the chemicals, number one, are water reactive. The first thing that happens in the hotels and motels is sprinkler systems go off with water reactive chemicals in the room.
Confined spaces, chemical reactions already in progress, and makeshift electrical wiring and plumbing also pose a threat. Often, sloppy housekeeping results in incompatible and reactive chemicals being stored together. Explosions occur as a result of mislabeling or operators mixing the wrong chemicals. Besides explosions and fires, chemical reactions can also generate highly poisonous gases that can kill within a few breaths. Being able to identify the signs of clandestine lab activities and the resulting waste abandonment sites will help you to protect yourself and others at risk. First off, only trained investigators should enter a suspected lab, and only a trained chemist should handle any clandestine lab equipment or chemicals. Suspected cooks are considered dangerous and are often armed and under the influence of drugs. Labs are often fortified and may have security and alarm systems as well as booby traps installed. Strong, unusual, and chemical odors are often present at labs. The smell associated with dirty diapers, rotten fish, ammonia, and a vinegar-like odor is commonly reported. Other proximity indicators, exposure symptoms, and complaints that may affect operators or neighbors near a clandestine lab include blurred vision or irritated eyes, nose, or throat, breathing difficulties, shortness of breath, or a tightness in the chest, anxiety, dizziness, headache, and nausea. Reports of drowsiness, lack of coordination, and flu-like symptoms are also common signs. Unusual late-night activity and people coming outside to smoke is another possible tip-off of lab activity. In rural areas, suspicious late-night traffic and electrical generator noise may also be a sign.
Another sign is to property owners. You need to be aware of your renters, what they're doing on your property, in sheds, in barns. Are they allowing you access when you come on the property? Are there areas on the property where your renters are saying, hey, you know, I don't want you hanging out over there or going by that location? It should throw up a red flag to you as a property owner that there could be some criminal activity occurring on your property.
Landlords may even be held liable for cleanup costs, so it's better to report any suspicious activity immediately. The presence of any precursor materials used to manufacture meth such as large quantities of cold medication, cans of Freon, ether, Coleman fuel, or other solvents, and Red Devil drain cleaner, suggests that a clandestine lab may be operating. Commercial and improvised laboratory glassware and equipment is also a tip-off. Graduated cylinders, beakers, flasks, reaction vessels, glass and plastic tubing, funnels, measuring cups, and Pyrex cookware have all been found at labs and storage facilities used to house paraphernalia between cooks. Some of the commercial and household equipment frequently found includes heating mantles, refrigerators, thermometers, ring stands, vacuum pumps, rheostats, scales, double boilers, crock pots, hot plates, buckets, ice chests, yellow mop pails, rubber gloves, and paper coffee filters. Being able to recognize materials found at clandestine lab dump sites can help you take actions that will lead to their eventual cleanup.
Often what happens is these cookers take their waste products from the labs and simply put them into baggies and or the original containers that they were in, and then they'll dump them alongside of the road. Some of the things you might recognize are empty medicine bottles for Sudafed, your over-the-counter cold tablets, empty Freon cans or 5-gallon cans, caustic soda cans and or bags, red phosphorus stained sheets or filters, stuff of that nature would certainly indicate to a trained person that this waste may be associated with a Clan lab, and proper PPE should be worn before the bags are opened.
Other items found at dump sites include broken laboratory equipment, discarded clothing, shoes, gloves, respirator mask filters, and dust masks. If you believe you've discovered a clandestine lab, storage facility, or dump, never handle containers, glassware, or equipment. Don't be tempted to interrupt or shut down a cook that is in progress. It may do more harm than good by causing the release of explosive or toxic vapors. Never interrupt chemical reactions, refrigeration and ventilation processes, water supplies, or operating distribution systems. And don't turn on or off any power or light switches. They may spark explosive vapors, or although rare, may be booby-trapped. After a lab, storage facility, or waste abandonment site has been discovered, it is important that a lab-certified officer and chemist certified in clandestine lab assessment make a thorough hazard assessment of the site. This team is suited in personal protective equipment, which may include self-contained breathing apparatus, or SCBA, and protective clothing.
We suit up in a level B, or whatever's appropriate for the situation. We'll go in and we'll do an assessment. We'll take photographs or whatever needs to be done. We'll do an assessment. We'll come back out. We'll get a plan together to dismantle the lab safely.
During an assessment, lab-certified officers and chemists know to expect the unexpected and follow a strict checklist with safety as the #1 priority. Once the site has been secured, assessed, and monitored, and samples have been taken as court evidence, it's then safely dismantled and inventoried.
Our concern is mostly that all the chemicals that are involved, any residual or any contamination whatsoever is removed from a site, so we can allow people to reoccupy the building or come back in and do whatever was done in that building before.
The initial or gross cleanup involves the removal of any materials that pose an immediate or potential health threat, including finished product and any toxic, corrosive, ignitable, or reactive materials. Government agencies and property owners are required to hire trained, licensed hazardous waste contractors to perform the work, which can run from $3,000 to $100,000 per site.
Well, everyone wants to see to it that the environment is protected, that the deleterious substances are properly disposed of, that the sites are then cleaned, and that there isn't any residue that's of any danger to anyone. But the cost of doing that can be significant, especially for some of the smaller communities. And that's why Congress has to step in to provide the funding to the federal agencies to ensure that there is money available for these cleanups, and that no local authorities back away from appropriate law enforcement just because they wouldn't have the funds to clean up a site after they'd concluded their work.
Final remediation of the site requires the removal and disposal of all hazardous wastes left from the gross cleanup phase and returning the property to a livable state.
That is trying to assess how much has penetrated the walls, the floors, the ground, and may take a longer time to assess. We may need to take samples of the soils and the areas we suspect, and then we have to address that with usually the property owner. The property owner then must contract another disposal company, or the same disposal company if he wants, come back in and remove all of that contamination. There are times that we've had contamination so bad and so expensive, the property owner has decided not to do anything with the property, and those sites are still under our control.
Unfortunately, the use of methamphetamine is expected to spread across the U.S. on an eastern track. Recent takedowns on clandestine labs in the Midwest and the East indicate that the drug is beginning to gain a foothold there.
In Arizona and California, we're apparently right on the front line of the methamphetamine epidemic, but we're beginning to hear from some folks throughout the country about the problem too. In Missouri and Iowa and North Carolina and Illinois, some states that it doesn't particularly make any sense that the drug would pop up there, but it is popping up, and I'm sure that it's just a matter of time before it's all over the country.
Getting the public involved is crucial. Informing communities about the dangers of the drug, along with urging landlords, business owners, and neighbors to contact police when they suspect manufacturing activities in their area, can make a difference.
So one of the things we're trying to do is have field hearings in several different states to bring more public awareness to the problem, not only of the use of the drug and the implications for law enforcement, but also the environmental considerations because of what the chemicals that are used to make methamphetamine do to the environment if they're not properly handled and disposed of.
The cooperation of chemical and pharmaceutical manufacturers, distributors, and sellers is also key to curtailing the spread of methamphetamine.
On a federal, state, and local level, we've developed a strategy to go after the source of the chemicals. If we can deny chemicals to the laboratory operators, then we think that we'll see a reduction in the methamphetamine produced in California and distributed throughout the United States.
It's difficult to deter a meth addict. Someone who's really addicted to methamphetamine, I mean, they've given up their job, they've given up their family, they've given up their life. It's unlikely that the threat of someone busting them is really going to modify their behavior. On the other hand, you've got businesses out there that are supplying the ingredients to make methamphetamine. Those business owners can be deterred by aggressive law enforcement.
Educating firefighters and law enforcement, as well as health and human service personnel, to be more aware of clandestine drug labs in their daily work can also have an impact.
One of the things we've been trying to do here in LA County is to educate as many firefighters and police officers as we can as to what to look for when they come across an incident that may be a fire and explosion, and determine if it could be as well a lab.
Through its partnership with the Office of National Drug Control Policy, EPA and the state of California have established the National Clandestine Methamphetamine Laboratory Training Program to train first responders to identify meth labs and take the necessary steps to protect themselves and others from the inherent dangers of meth labs. This training program was developed specifically for law enforcement, fire service, emergency medical service providers, and environmental health personnel. For more information, contact Lisa Boynton, Office of Emergency and Remedial Response, U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, 703-603-9052. EPA has also partnered with the Office of National Drug Control Policy to promote awareness of the environmental and human health hazards posed by clandestine meth labs and improve local capabilities to respond to those hazards. To enhance the local capabilities, EPA has a program that provides funds to local governments that incur costs while responding to meth labs. This program, called the Local Governments Reimbursement, or LGR program, can reimburse local governments up to $25,000 for each meth lab they clean up. The Local Governments Reimbursement toll-free helpline is 1-800-431-9209.